Good morning. I have a prepared statement, and then I'll take a few questions. Obviously, you're going to hear me say them more than once. It's very early on in the investigation, so the information I can give is limited. The safety and security of the residents of the city of Rochester, as well as the members of the police department, is our primary mission and responsibility. We owe it to our community, our officers, and their families to ensure their safety and protection, and that a complete, thorough, and transparent investigation takes place. This morning, shortly after 2 a.m., officers responded to a residence in the 400 block of Remington Street for the report of a domestic altercation. The preliminary investigation appears to show that while officers were responding to this call, they were fired upon by a male at the residence who was armed with a handgun. This resulted in our officers returning fire. The suspect then ran from these officers and was taken into custody in a nearby backyard. At this time, it appears that neither the officers nor the suspect were struck by gunfire, and we are very thankful for that. The suspect and one of the officers were both taken to a nearby hospital for treatment of non-life-threatening injuries sustained during the incident. Shortly after the suspect was taken into custody, another officer responding to the scene was attacked by an unleashed dog. The officer was placed in a situation to defend himself from this attack and subsequently fired his gun at the charging animal. The animal was taken by Rochester Animal Services for medical care. The suspect from today's incident is in custody, and he will be identified at a later time as the investigation is continuing. In response to today's officer-involved shooting, the Major Crimes Unit and the Professional Standards Section are conducting parallel investigations into this matter. As part of this fact-finding, we encourage anyone with video, photos, or any other information to please contact 911 or 311. As the investigation unfolds, we will continue to keep our community updated with as much information as possible. Every time an officer discharges their gun in the line of duty, we have the responsibility to investigate thoroughly and determine exactly what happened. It is always our goal to be as transparent as possible, and we will continue to keep our community informed as the investigation allows. And I'll take a few questions.
Can you tell us, was this individual, this suspect, is this a person that is known to police?
This is a person who is known to us. I'm not going to get into his criminal background at this time.
And how many people were inside that home?
Preliminarily, I can say there were at least 3 to 4 people inside the home. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but from my briefing, that was my understanding.
All adults?
No.
Children?
There were some children. I do not have their exact ages.
Chief, why do you think this person started shooting at your officers?
Well, I think he started shooting at them because he wanted to kill them.
Did your officers, so you've had some contact with this person before, did your officers know who they were going to see on their way there?
No, they did not. It was a third-party call to 911 for a domestic-type incident. No names initially were given on the job.
How kind of scary is it for just not only these officers, but officers in general, to have a third-party call and basically catfish them into what seems like a trap? To, like you said, this person seemed like they shot with the intention to kill.
Well, we respond to jobs like this all the time. Very little information often comes into 911, and officers are expected to gather information on their way and when they arrive at the scene. As I said, this came in as a domestic incident from a third party for some sort of an altercation, and obviously when the officers arrived on scene, things escalated as they were beginning their investigation.
Chief, about 3 years ago, there was a call for a family problem, and Officer Denny Wright responded to that, and we know what happened to Officer Denny Wright. This was a call for a domestic problem, and we just heard you describe what happened. And I'm wondering if things need to change with how police get dispatched to calls for family problems.
Well, I mean, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, we always have a duty to respond, obviously. I mean, sometimes we go to a residence for, we call it a cause unknown. Someone calls 911 and hangs up the phone, but we have the location. Officers respond on as little information as that. Sometimes we may have prior knowledge of the location if officers have been there. Sometimes we do have what's called a premise warning on the location, so the computer would let the officers know that there's a warning. But very often, we go in cold, not knowing what we're walking into, any given scenario, any given day. And, you know, the officers, not only the Rochester Police Department, but nationwide, that's what we do day in and day out, 8 to 16 hours a day.
If a particular address is not known to a responding officer, but is well known within the department itself, is that made clear to the responding officers that we've had calls at this residence in the past? This is what the result has typically been, so they know what they are walking into?
It can be sometimes. Sometimes an officer who's familiar may hear the address, may shoot the other officer responding a quick text or a call on the radio and say, I've been there for this or that. But again, you know, with radio traffic being very busy, you know, you're dependent on other officers hearing it and then actually having the time to let you know.
Chief, when your officers show up to a location and somebody shoots at them, what does your training tell your officers to do?
Well, obviously the preservation of life is our #1 priority, that being their lives, the lives of any civilians in the area. And ultimately, too, you know, if and when gunfire is exchanged, the life of any person that we're taking into custody. And you've seen that in multiple critical incidents, where as soon as they're able to, the officers have rendered medical assistance to the suspects.
And Chief, you said that a dog was charging at one of the officers. Refresh my memory, that's it. I may have just said that. Was the dog released intentionally, or did it just happen to get loose?
I don't know. I think it had just happened to get loose with all the commotion going on in the area. And, you know, excited as you know, people were.
The exchange of gunfire, do we know the suspect, you say, shot first, do we know how many shots were fired and how many were discharged by officers?
No, we have body-worn camera, but we're still processing the scene right now. It's going to be several hours until we're done with the scene. So I wouldn't want to, again, out of concern for the investigation, I wouldn't want to answer incorrectly. So no, I don't have an exact number.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Can we talk about staffing?
Sure, I'd love to talk about staffing quick.
All right. What does staffing look like for the department right now?
So currently, obviously, our sworn number is 720, our authorized strength. We are currently down about 61 true vacancies. I don't have it in front of me, but obviously we stay on top of it. So in the ballpark of 61? 68. 68 true vacancies. Those vacancies, I can tell you, are all in patrol. And obviously they are supplemented with overtime.
Can you talk about the Sheriff's Office assisting you guys due to the shortage?
Sure, and you know, I'd like to take this chance to thank Sheriff Todd Baxter and also the New York State Police. They're helping us, as they always do, but they've provided us some additional staffing. I'm not obviously going to get into our operational plans. We don't want to give away what we're doing, but we will be, what we always do, we will be doing data-driven policing in very specific high-violence areas. By no means is this you know, going to be a saturation patrol or a zero-tolerance effort. It will be data-driven, focused police work.
Do we know how many patrol units from MCSO and state police will be assisting? And then can you just talk about the need for this additional support?
Well, the actual staffing provided is going to vary on a daily basis. They are facing staffing shortages of their own, which, I mean, it's a nationwide thing. So we're grateful that they're able to give us what resources they have. It's gonna vary on any given day. What we did is we looked at our staffing and our availability on each day to address the areas that we want to address with on duty and with overtime. And then where we had gaps, we reached out and they were able to supplement us.
So So it's not unprecedented, but there's clearly a need for this.
Correct. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I'll send this out electronically.
Sounds good, thank you.
So we're still looking